Ready to unlock your notary potential and boost your income? It's time to move beyond basic notarizations. In Notary, Niche Navigator by Derek Spruill, learn the most profitable specialized services. Learn to master high-demand areas like loan signings, international apostilles, and I-9 employment verifications. This essential guide offers new ideas to help you become the go-to expert in your field. Grab your copy of Notary, Niche Navigator by Derek Spruill today and start building your empire.
Welcome to Notary Knowledge, and we are so glad you decided to join us today. Look, this is a fast-paced, highly informative show designed specifically for the experienced, high-level professional.
Absolutely. We are talking to the folks who are out there in the trenches every single day.
Right. And before we get started, we want to remind you to check out the Notary Knowledge books written by Derek Spruill. They are an incredible resource.
Oh, they are essential reading. You can find them along with a ton of other resources right on the Notary Knowledge website.
You definitely want to go visit the site. And while you are at it, make sure you check out our video podcast, No Notary, with Eddie Montes Travis, Marylyn's 90 Seconds of Notary.
Lots of great content out there to keep you sharp.
So let us get into today's mission. We are tackling a massive topic, beating the heat, specifically focusing on professional attire for summer mobile shifts.
It is such a brutal problem because, it is so easy to look good when you are sitting in a perfectly climate-controlled 68-degree title office.
Oh, sure. Anyone can look sharp in a freezer.
Exactly. But maintaining a crisp, authoritative, quiet luxury aesthetic when you are essentially working out of an oven on wheels during a brutal summer heat wave, that requires some serious strategy.
It really does. Think about it. Right now, if your car is parked in direct summer sunlight while you are inside a client's house doing a loan signing, the ambient temperature inside that cabin is climbing by roughly 1 degree per minute.
Which is terrifying.
It is. Within half an hour, your leather seats are sitting at 160 degrees. The steering wheel is literally too hot to touch.
Yeah, you have to use a towel just to put your hands on the wheel.
Right. And in about 2 hours, if you are out on a mobile road, bouncing from closing to closing, you are expected to step out of that literal greenhouse, put on a wool suit jacket, and walk into a boardroom looking immaculate.
Like you just strolled out of a hyper-controlled environment. It is just an insane expectation to put on the human body, let alone the clothes.
It is the absolute definition of environmental whiplash.
Wow.
We associate professional success, especially in the high-level notary world, with these perfectly calibrated environments.
Right, where the lighting is perfect, the AC is humming, and your crisp appearance is a completely controlled variable.
But the reality for you, the modern mobile professional, is a daily routine that is fundamentally a thermodynamic nightmare.
It really is a nightmare because you are asking incredibly delicate textiles to survive a transition from extreme stagnant heat to frigid, dehumidified corporate air over and over again without showing a single sign of physical stress.
So today, we are reverse engineering the perfect mobile summer setup. We are pulling from some fascinating sources today, looking at the thermodynamic engineering of bespoke suits.
Getting right down to the molecular level.
Exactly, looking at high-twist wools and mohair. Plus, we're getting into advanced automotive nanoceramic window tints.
That part is mind-blowing.
It is. And we are even covering the logistics of mobile 12-volt compressor refrigerators and micro-grooming for when you are on the road.
Because surviving this environment requires a masterclass in both textile physics and environmental control.
Right. Buying a high-end suit is completely irrelevant if you do not understand the engineering required to build a personal microclimate.
So true. I think anyone who has ever spent serious money on a traditional luxury suit knows this pain.
Oh, absolutely. You buy this beautiful, buttery soft, Super 150s wool, right?
Yeah, or a really nice cashmere blend.
You get into your car in July, you drive 45 minutes to a signing, and when you step out, you look like a crumpled, deflated mess.
The back of the jacket is ruined. The trousers look like an accordion.
It is awful. And reading through the textile science in our sources, it comes down to a phenomenon called fiber collapse, combined with moisture-induced creasing.
Right, and it is driven by the actual molecular structure of the wool itself.
Wool is highly hygroscopic.
Which means it readily absorbs moisture from the air and, obviously, from your body.
Exactly. At a molecular level, the keratin proteins in fine wool are held together by hydrogen bonds.
So when you introduce the extreme ambient heat of a car seat, combined with the inevitable perspiration from sitting there, you are actively attacking those bonds.
The moisture just penetrates the fiber.
Yes, and the heat makes the keratin highly pliable, Add the mechanical weight-bearing pressure of you actually sitting on the fabric, and you physically reshape the yarn.
You are essentially ironing wrinkles into the suit with your own body weight.
That is exactly what is happening. And when you stand up, the moisture begins to evaporate, the fiber cools down, and those hydrogen bonds just lock right into their new crumpled position.
Which is why standard luxury fabrics, especially the ones prized for that incredibly soft hand feel, are fundamentally delicate. Their fibers are shorter and finer.
So throwing money at a standard luxury fabric actually works against you in extreme heat.
Right. True quiet luxury in this contest is not about a flashy brand name. It is about impeccable craftsmanship and textiles specifically engineered for the environment.
And looking at the tailoring notes from our sources, the first place to fix this is not actually the outside of the suit. You have to completely deconstruct the internal architecture.
You have to rip out the lining.
Basically, yes. If you analyze a standard off-the-rack suit, it is fully lined.
Right. The entire interior, from the sleeves to the shoulders, all the way down to the hem, is covered in a secondary fabric.
Usually a synthetic material like polyester, or maybe a breathable Bemberg Cupro if it is higher end.
But historically, that full lining is there to add weight, to protect the internal canvas, and to make it glide over your shirt.
But a full lining is a thermal trap. Wearing a fully lined suit with a synthetic interior in July is the equivalent of wearing a plastic grocery bag over your t-shirt.
That is such a gross visual, but it is true.
It is. No matter how breathable the outer wool is, the heat radiating off your body hits that tightly woven lining and stops dead. The moisture has nowhere to go.
So the sartorial mechanics of summer demand a radical shift to a half-lined or a completely unlined jacket.
And that transition changes the entire construction process of the garment.
Because a half-lined suit retains the lining only across the upper back, the shoulders, and the sleeves, right?
Right, which protects the high-wear friction areas so your arms slide in without catching, but it leaves the lower back entirely exposed to airflow.
Because the lower back is where sweat pools heavily against a car seat.
Exactly. But the ultimate expression of this is the unlined or the butterfly-lined suit.
Also known as the buggy lining. You look inside, and it's just two curved, wind-like fabric panels intersecting across the shoulder blades.
The rest of the front and sides is just the raw back of the exterior wool.
Now, my instinctive thought is that using less fabric should make the jacket cheaper, right?
You would think so. But the tailoring sources highlight the exact opposite.
Because removing the lining removes the tailor's hiding place.
Bingo. The lining conceals all the raw edges, the internal canvas seams, the basting stitches. When you strip that away, every single internal seam is suddenly visible.
So an unlined suit demands flawless, labor-intensive hand finishing.
It really does. The sources mention bias-bound and French seams specifically.
A French seam is fascinating. It is essentially a seam enclosed within itself.
The tailor sews the pieces wrong sides together, trims the edge down, folds the fabric over, and sews it again.
So the raw edge is completely trapped inside a neat little fabric envelope.
Or they use bias binding, taking a separate thin strip of silk or cotton to manually wrap every single exposed edge. It is hours of extra work.
It is a hallmark of true invisible craftsmanship. But, and I have to push back on this unlined concept here, does it not create a structural dilemma?
It can if you use the wrong fabric.
Because every time I see an unlined jacket on the rack, it looks incredibly deflated. We associate power suits, especially when you're walking in to notarize a multi-million-dollar real estate transaction, with a crisp, rigid structure.
Right, the sharp shoulder, the clean drape.
If you strip out the heavy canvas and the lining, and it is just a thin layer of wool, don't you lose all that authority? Doesn't it look like you are wearing a glorified cardigan?
That is the primary concern for the mobile professional. You cannot afford to look casual. And the solution relies entirely on the physics of the outer fabric.
Okay, how so?
In summer, structure cannot come from heavy canvas or thick padding. It must come from the inherent stiffness, torsion, and resilience of the fibers themselves.
So you engineer the yarn to act as its own support structure.
Exactly.
We'll be right back.
You're listening to Do the Work, Stay the Course, No Shortcuts, the podcast for people who are serious about building something real. From business and leadership to accountability and personal development, this show cuts through the noise and focuses on what actually works: discipline, consistency, and execution. No hype, no gimmicks, just the mindset and habits required to operate at a higher level. If you're ready to stop looking for shortcuts and start building momentum the right way, Listen to Do the Work, Stay the Course, No Shortcuts, anywhere you get your podcasts. Let's get to work.
Which brings us to the critical divergence between traditional worsted wool and high-twist yarns.
Traditional worsted wool is made by combing the fleece, so all the long staple fibers are perfectly parallel, right?
Yes, discarding the short, scratchy fibers. It creates a smooth, dense yarn, but it traps dead air.
So to fix this for a 100-degree day, the mills completely changed the spinning process to create high-twist yarns, like the famous fresco fabrics.
They introduce extreme mechanical torsion. They take those worsted wool fibers and wind them under immense tension, twisting them much tighter than standard yarn.
Twisting the yarn that tightly fundamentally alters its behavior, doesn't it?
It does. It turns the yarn into a microscopic coiled spring. Because it is so tight and dense, it cannot flatten out.
And when you weave these tight, wiry yarns together, they cannot pack closely. They naturally sit apart, creating a highly porous, open weave structure.
If you hold a high-twist fabric up to the light, you can literally see through the microscopic gaps. It maximizes convective airflow across your skin.
But the thermal benefit is only half the equation, right? The mechanical benefit is the kinetic drape memory.
Because every single yarn is acting like a coiled tension spring, it has a dry, slightly coarse hand feel that physically fights against being creased.
It bounces back. You sit in your car for an hour, your body weight compresses the fabric against the seat, but the moment you stand up and shake the jacket, it snaps back into its original shape.
You trade the ultra-soft feel of cashmere for a fabric that acts like kinetic armor.
And modern textile engineering is pushing this even further into the realm of nanotechnology.
Oh, this part is brilliant. The research highlights Ermenegildo Zegna's Cool Effect fabric.
Right. They take superfine Australian merino wool, which already has excellent thermal regulation, and subject it to a proprietary finishing treatment.
Normally, dark fabrics, your standard corporate navy or charcoal, absorb a massive amount of solar radiation.
The dye absorbs the visible and near-infrared light and converts it to heat, which is why wearing a dark suit in the sun feels like being roasted alive.
But Zegna's treatment alters the surface reflectance of the dark fibers. It allows the dark fabric to behave thermodynamically like a white fabric.
Wait, really?
Yes, it reflects up to 80% of direct solar heat, specifically targeting the near-infrared spectrum rather than absorbing it.
So visually, you project the authority of a dark navy suit, but physically, your body is experiencing the heat absorption of a white linen suit.
It is an incredible manipulation of the environment.
We are going to take a quick commercial break, but when we come back, we're going to look at one specific natural fiber that stands absolutely unrivaled when it comes to resilient summer armor. We will be right back.
Do not go away.
And we are back. Before the break, we were talking about high-twist wools, but the sources universally agree there is a secret weapon out there.
We have to shift away from sheep entirely and look at mohair.
You know, I always assumed mohair was just a marketing term for a particularly soft breed of sheep.
A lot of people do, but it is not. Mohair is the fiber harvested exclusively from the Angora goat.
And on a biological and structural level, it is a completely different beast than merino wool or cashmere.
The evolutionary biology of the Angora goat is the key here. These goats develop their fleece in incredibly harsh, arid climates regions like the Karoo in South Africa or parts of Texas.
So to survive, their fleece evolved specific microscopic architecture.
Exactly. Mohair fibers are exceptionally long, naturally wavy, and most importantly, the scales on the exterior of the fiber are incredibly smooth and flat.
Which is a huge contrast to sheep's wool. Under a microscope, sheep's wool has these jagged, overlapping scales, almost like shingles on a roof.
Those jagged scales lock together to trap dead air for insulation, but they also trap heat and dirt.
The smooth, flat scales of mohair prevent dirt and dust from embedding in the fiber, making it remarkably hard-wearing.
But the defining property for the mobile notary is the tensile strength and the rigidity of the fiber. Mohair is naturally stiff.
It has a high micron count, meaning the fiber is thicker and stronger. It is practically impervious to wrinkling.
But that stiffness presents a problem. If a fiber is thick and has smooth scales, a pure 100% mohair suit would feel incredibly harsh against the skin.
It would be coarse and stiff, like wearing a suit woven out of fishing line. You would never want that rubbing against your neck.
That is why you rarely, if ever, see a pure mohair garment. The magic happens in the blending process at the mill.
It makes sense if you think about it like reinforced concrete. The wool in these suits is the concrete. It provides the softness, the comfort against the skin, and the elegant drape.
And the mohair is the steel rebar. It provides an invisible, unyielding, rigid backbone running through the weave.
So the soft material will not collapse or crumple, no matter how many times you get in and out of a car seat all day.
It is the perfect symbiosis of fibers. You typically see blends ranging from 14% up to 35% mohair.
How does that percentage change the performance?
A lighter blend, around 14 to 20%, is incredibly versatile. It drapes beautifully and feels almost indistinguishable from pure wool, but it holds a razor-sharp crease, even in high humidity.
And what if you push past 30%?
Once you move toward a 35% blend, the cloth becomes highly durable, slightly stiffer, and acts as a phenomenal thermal insulator that simply refuses to wrinkle. It stands away from the body, facilitating that convective airflow.
And there's a distinct visual signature to mohair too, right?
Because of those flat, smooth scales, it reflects light differently than wool. It possesses a luxurious, dry luster.
It's not that cheap, glossy shine you see on synthetic suits. It is a subtle, almost metallic gleam that only catches the light at certain angles.
It looks like polished steel. It projects a very elevated, dressy look, perfect for commanding a closing table.
This specific combination of flawless performance under pressure and high-end visual luster is exactly why mohair became the uniform of the ultimate cinematic mobile professional, James Bond.
Sean Connery essentially wrote the manual on surviving extreme environments while maintaining lethal elegance.
In Dr. No, when he arrives in Jamaica and is instantly dealing with tropical heat, he is wearing a mohair blend suit.
And in Thunderball, he's navigating the Bahamas in a gorgeous gray mohair blend.
His tailor, Anthony Sinclair, specifically chose these cloths. Bond is driving sports cars, riding speedboats, fighting bad guys, and he stands up, smooths his jacket, and looks like he just stepped out of a fitting on Civil Row.
And that cinematic representation mirrored a massive cultural phenomenon happening in reality. In 1957, the legendary fabric mill Dormule introduced a cloth called tonic.
It was a highly engineered 3-ply mohair and worsted wool blend, right?
Yes, and it became an absolute obsession within the mod movement in London throughout the 1960s.
The mods were essentially the original urban mobile professionals. They were riding Vespa and Lambretta scooters through London traffic all night.
And tonic cloth gave them flawless shape retention. Their suits never wrinkled from sitting on a scooter seat.
And it had this slight changeant or two-tone effect where the color seemed to shift subtly under the streetlights because of the mohair's natural luster.
It was the pinnacle of high-performance tailoring. And those principles, breathability, kinetic memory, and structural integrity, are exactly what the modern corporate worker needs today.
So we have engineered the ultimate armor for the torso, but a mobile notary is not stationary. The job is defined by transition.
Getting in and out of a low-slung sedan, navigating expansive asphalt parking lots, walking up slippery client driveways.
This requires footwear that can handle the biomechanical stress of the pedals and the impact of the pavement without causing fatigue, while still maintaining that boardroom authority.
Which forces a complete reevaluation of corporate footwear. Over the last decade, there has been a massive shift away from traditional laced Oxfords toward the slip-on loafer.
Laced Oxfords are beautiful, but structurally, they are miniature prisons for the foot. They restrict the expansion of the metatarsals, trap heat, and the stiff, rigid soles are incredibly cumbersome when you need precise articulation on a gas pedal.
The loafer strikes the necessary balance. It acts as relaxed, unrestricted travel wear while you are driving, allowing the ankle to flex freely.
At the traditional end, you have bench-made shoes like the Allen Edmonds Randolph.
A full-strap penny loafer crafted from premium full-grain calfskin. And what makes it viable for someone on their feet all day is the internal footbed.
They use a Goodyear welt construction, which allows them to pack a layer of cork between the insole and the leather outsole.
Over the first few weeks of wear, the heat and pressure of your foot physically compress that cork layer. It molds to the exact shape of your arch.
You are essentially creating a bespoke, orthotic footbed hidden inside a highly formal dress shoe.
But traditional leather soles have limitations. They transmit heat directly from hot asphalt into the foot, and they offer very little shock absorption.
For the notary driving hundreds of miles a week, that hard impact causes severe foot and lower back fatigue. This has driven the rise of the high-tech hybrid loafer.
Amberjack is a fascinating case study from our sources. Their flagship model, simply called the loafer, looks like a traditional suede or leather dress loafer from a distance.
But underneath, they are utilizing advanced polymer science pulled straight from the athletic industry.
The insole is constructed from a proprietary, heat-activated viscoelastic polyurethane foam.
identical to the energy return foams you find in premium running shoes.
Right. And the outsole discards the stiff leather entirely in favor of a dual-density TPU or thermoplastic polyurethane.
The same highly durable, grippy compound used in hiking boots. It provides incredible support and traction on slick lobby floors or icy porches.
But the critical thermodynamic feature for summer heat is the internal lining. Most dress shoes are lined with non-porous calf skin, trapping foot sweat.
Amberjack uses a ridiculously soft sheepskin lining that has been systematically laser perforated for active mechanical ventilation.
As your foot flexes, it physically pumps hot air out of those microscopic holes. You can wear them all day in August without socks and avoid blisters entirely.
This concept of hidden functional engineering extends beautifully into women's mobile workwear as well, specifically through the mechanics of convertible luxury.
Convertible shoes. The engineering here is brilliant. Brands like Gucci with their iconic Brixton horsebit loafer, or Everlane with their day driver.
They utilize ultra-supple, unlined Italian Napa leather or suede. But the genius is in the heel counter, the rigid cup at the back of the shoe that usually holds your heel in place.
In a traditional shoe, a stiff heel counter causes immense friction and blistering when driving because the angle of the foot on the pedal forces the back of the shoe to grind against the Achilles tendon.
These convertible loafers are engineered with a collapsible heel counter. The leather is squeezed incredibly thin and reinforced with a flexible matrix.
It allows the entire back of the shoe to fold perfectly flat against the footbed without damaging the structure.
So a woman driving for 2 hours can fold the heel down and wear the shoe as a casual backless driving mule. Total comfort, zero friction on the heel, maximum airflow.
Then, when she pulls into the title office parking lot, she steps out, pops the heel back up, and the shoe instantly transforms back into a structured, formal slipper.
It is the ultimate adaptation to the environment. But I have a question about this. With all this focus on athletic foam, hiking boot soles, and folding heels, isn't there a danger of slipping too far into casual territory?
You definitely do not want to look like you're wearing orthotic walking shoes or house slippers to a high-stakes loan signing.
Exactly. How do you ensure a hybrid loafer still commands respect?
The line of demarcation is the silhouette, and the last, the physical mold the shoe is built around. Even if the internal mechanics feel like a sneaker, the external profile must maintain a sharp, streamlined, elegant toe shape.
The vamp must sweep cleanly, materials must be premium full-grain leather or high-grade reverse calf suede.
You absolutely must avoid overly chunky soles, aggressive lug patterns, contrast stitching, or thick padded collars around the ankle.
Keep a refined, low-profile silhouette, and the modern corporate environment will accept the hidden comfort.
But this brings us to the ultimate reality check. You can have the most perfectly engineered high-twist mohair suit. You can have the most technologically advanced loafers in the world.
But none of it will matter if the environment you are sitting in is actively working against you.
If your car is 140 degrees, your suit will eventually fail. Your body will thermoregulate by sweating.
So after this quick commercial break, we're going to fix the vehicle itself. Stay with us.
We will be right back.
And we are back. Let us dive into the physics of a hot car and advanced vehicle thermal management.
We have to address the greenhouse problem. A car in summer is not just warm, it is a dangerous thermal trap.
The sources note that an untinted vehicle parked in direct sunlight can exceed 140 degrees Fahrenheit in under 10 minutes. Why does it heat up so violently fast?
It is the greenhouse effect operating at maximum efficiency. Standard automotive silica glass is practically transparent to solar radiation.
It blocks only a fraction of the ultraviolet rays, and crucially, it lets near-infrared and far-infrared radiation pass straight through with almost zero resistance.
The SOLI spectrum is broken into 3 parts. You have ultraviolet, or UV, which causes sunburns and fades your dashboard.
You have visible light, which is what allows you to see.
And you have infrared, which is the actual thermal energy, the heat you feel radiating onto your skin.
Those infrared rays pass through the glass. They hit the dark surfaces of your car, the leather seats, the dashboard.
Those materials absorb the shortwave infrared energy and radiate it back out into the cabin as long-wave ambient heat.
Because the windows are closed, that long-wave heat cannot escape back through the glass. The thermal energy is trapped, and the ambient temperature skyrockets exponentially.
The obvious answer to block the sun is window tint, but some of the most common tints are practically useless for actual thermal management.
Let us trace the history. The most basic entry-level product is dyed window tint,
which is essentially a layer of peat film embedded with dark dye. It absorbs visible light, making the window look dark, but the dye does absolutely nothing to reflect or absorb infrared heat.
So your car looks blanked out from the outside, but it's still a literal oven inside.
Precisely. So the industry developed metallized tint. This involves a vacuum sputtering process where microscopic metallic particles, often aluminum or nickel, are embedded into the film layer.
These metals are highly reflective. They bounce the infrared heat away incredibly well. So why did the industry move away from it?
Because of the unintended electromagnetic consequences. A metallized film wrapped around your car essentially turns the vehicle into a Faraday cage.
It aggressively blocks radio frequency waves. For the modern mobile notary, this is disastrous.
It interferes with GPS navigation, Bluetooth connectivity, satellite radio, and cellular signals.
You cannot run a mobile office, navigate to a new client site, or take a critical call from a title company if your window tint is dropping your cell service.
Right. So polymer science solved the Faraday cage problem with inorganic chemistry, creating nanoceramic tint.
Brands like XPEL with their Prime XR Plus line or the Lumar's IRX series.
These films utilize non-conductive inorganic nanoceramic particles, often titanium nitride or tungsten oxide, ground down to a microscopic scale and embedded across multiple optical layers.
These ceramic nanoparticles are specifically engineered to target and absorb up to 98% of the infrared heat spectrum and 99% of the UV rays before they ever penetrate the glass.
And because titanium nitride is non-metallic, it is completely radio transparent. It causes zero signal interference.
But the most important concept for you, the listener, to understand is the darkness myth.
Oh, this causes so much confusion at the tint shop.
I always assumed that to block the blistering heat, the windows had to be pitch black. But the darkness of the film has almost no correlation to the heat rejection.
None whatsoever. Heat rejection is measured by a metric called TSER, total solar energy rejection.
TSER is dependent on the density and the specific chemical quality of the nanoceramic particles. Visible light transmission, or VLT, is just a separate metric, measuring how much visible light you can see through the dye.
It makes sense if you think about it like an exclusive nightclub bouncer.
The nanoceramic particles act as the bouncer at the door of your car. The bouncer happily lets the visible light walk right into the club.
But the bouncer completely recognizes and blocks the obnoxious, rowdy infrared heat and UV rays from crossing the velvet rope into the VIP section of your cabin.
Because the ceramic particles target specific nanometer wavelengths of infrared, you can apply a film with a very light 35% VLT, which is legal in most jurisdictions, or even a virtually clear ceramic film to the front windshield.
That clear film will reject drastically more heat than a pitch-black 5% dyed film that has no ceramic properties.
The pinnacle of this clear heat rejection seems to be 3M's crystalline series. They do not even use ceramic particles, they use multilayer optical film technology.
Instead of absorbing the heat with ceramics, they use constructive and destructive interference to reflect it.
They stack over 200 individual layers of alternating polymer optical film into a single sheet thinner than a Post-it note.
Each microscopic layer reflects a very specific sliver of the infrared spectrum.
By applying these advanced films, you fundamentally stabilize the thermal environment. The ambient temperature plummets, your AC system does not have to work as hard, and you are not sweating through the back of your mohair suit.
You have controlled the variables, and once the cabin is formally stabilized, you transform the vehicle into a highly functioning mobile staging area.
Let us dig into cold chain logistics and mobile micro-grooming. Because even in a heavily tinted car, extreme heat is catastrophic for grooming products, sunscreens, and cosmetics.
Cosmetics and sunscreens are complex chemical emulsions, carefully balanced mixtures of oils, waters, active ingredients, and emulsifiers.
When exposed to 100-degree heat for prolonged periods, the thermal energy breaks down the emulsifiers. The product experiences phase separation.
The oil separates from the water, and the product becomes a ruined, greasy mess.
So you need active refrigeration in the vehicle. But you cannot rely on those cheap $40 electric coolers you see at truck stops.
You absolutely cannot. Those cheap units are thermoelectric coolers. They operate on the Peltier effect, creating a temperature differential without a compressor.
The fatal flaw is that they can only drop the internal temperature roughly 30 degrees Fahrenheit below the ambient temperature of the car.
So if your car interior hits 100 degrees, the inside of that thermoelectric cooler is sitting at 70 degrees. That is room temperature.
Your chilled face wipes are warm. It is useless. You must invest in a true 12-volt vapor compressor refrigerator.
Models from brands like Dometic, Iseco, or Alpacool. These operate on the exact same thermodynamic vapor compression cycle as your kitchen refrigerator.
They use a miniaturized compressor to pump a chemical refrigerant through an evaporator coil, forcefully holding the internal cavity at 38 degrees, regardless of how hot the ambient air gets.
But the logistical hurdle here is power. A compressor fridge draws substantial amps. How do you power this system all day without draining your car's starter battery?
You integrate a portable power station, essentially an external high-capacity lithium iron phosphate, or LiFePO4, battery, brands like EcoFlow or Jackery.
When the car is parked, the fridge runs silently off the lithium battery. When you start the car, a DC to DC charger pulls power from the vehicle's alternator to rapidly recharge the lithium house battery.
It creates an independent, self-sustaining microgrid in the trunk. So you have this perfectly chilled microfridge. What are you keeping in there?
Specialized cooling wipes, like the Giggles Aloe wet wipes.
After you have been loading heavy loan documents out of a trunk, you need to remove perspiration and grime from your face and neck.
If you apply a chilled 38-degree wipe to the major pulse points, specifically the sides of the neck over the carotid arteries, you use conductive heat transfer to pull thermal energy directly out of the bloodstream.
It rapidly lowers your core body temperature. I also noticed chilled facial mists in the research, specifically menthol-infused mists like Pastel.
Menthol is fascinating. It specifically binds to the TRPM8 receptors in your skin, which are the exact same nerve receptors responsible for sensing cold temperatures.
It tricks your brain into feeling a deep, icy sensation. Combined with the actual physical chill of the refrigerated water, it physically constricts the capillaries in your face, reducing that flushed red appearance.
We also see chilled aerosol sunscreens like the Happy Skin SPF 50 spray. Chilled aerosol goes on as a fine, dry mist and cools irritated skin on contact.
But sitting in a vehicle seat creates massive friction and trapped heat on your lower back and around your shirt collar. This requires anti-friction dermal barriers, specifically advanced cooling powders.
Our sources highlight a cult favorite product from Thailand called Snake Brand Cooling Powder. It is a finely milled talc blend heavily infused with active menthol and camphor.
You apply this powder to high-friction areas before putting on the suit. The talc acts as thousands of microscopic ball bearings on the skin, reducing friction and absorbing perspiration before it soaks into the shirt.
And the menthol provides a sustained, icy cooling sensation that prevents heat rashes.
But even with all this, accidents happen. You spill coffee, or the seatbelt stamps a crease across your jacket. How do you maintain the physical wardrobe itself inside the car?
For storage, you use integrated systems like the BMW Travel and Comfort coat hanger. It mounts directly and securely to the steel headrest posts of the front seat.
It suspends the jacket perfectly freely behind the seat, ensuring zero pressure and zero creasing while you drive.
And if a crease does happen, you rely on advanced handheld garment care. The leading model is the Nori Press.
It looks like a high-tech hair straightener for textiles. It has dual non-stick heated aluminum plates that press both the front and the back of the garment simultaneously.
It eliminates the need for an ironing board entirely. You clamp the heated plates over the lapel or the trouser crease, hit the steam button, and kill wrinkles right from the driver's seat.
Managing all this technology, the high-twist yarns, the multi-layer window films, the lithium-powered fridges, it might seem like overkill. Does it actually save time, or does it become an exhaustingly complex job in itself?
It is a question of front-loading your effort. Once the system is established, the daily maintenance is practically zero.
And what that front-loaded effort buys you is absolute confidence. The system automatically manages your physical environment, so all of your cognitive energy can be focused entirely on your client and your work.
We are going to take one final, very quick break. When we return, we are jumping into everyone's favorite segment.
Good question. What would you do? Stay tuned.
Do not go away.
Welcome back to Notary Knowledge. It is time for our segment. Good question. What would you do?
We love this segment. This is where we take real-world scenarios from notaries out in the field and break down how to handle them professionally.
First up, we have a scenario from Gary in Wyoming. Gary writes, I drove 2 hours out to a remote ranch for a massive agricultural loan signing. When I got there, the signer was completely ghosted. No one answered the door, no cell service to call them. What would you do?
Oh, Gary, that is brutal. 2 hours of driving each way, plus the gas and wear and tear on your vehicle.
First things first. As a high-level notary, you have to protect your time. Before you ever leave your driveway for a remote signing, you need a clear, written agreement regarding travel fees.
Exactly. The notarization fee itself is usually capped by state law, but travel fees, convenience fees, or cancellation fees are generally determined by mutual agreement before the appointment.
In this scenario, since he's already there, he needs to document everything. Take a photo of the location, note the exact time of arrival and the duration he waited.
A standard wait time is usually 15 to 20 minutes. After that, without any communication, you have to leave.
Then, as soon as you hit cell service, you contact the hiring party, the title company, or the signing service immediately. You explain the signer was a no-show, provide your documentation, and submit your invoice for the agreed-upon travel fee or printing fee.
Do not just eat that cost, Gary. You provided the professional service of arriving ready to work.
All right, our next scenario is from Kim in Kansas. Kim says, I was at a kitchen table signing, and the signer insisted on using her own Lucky Purple gel pen to sign the loan documents. She got extremely defensive when I asked her to use my pen. What would you do?
Kim, this is a classic power struggle, but it is one you absolutely cannot lose.
Right, because loan documents are not greeting cards. They are highly sensitive legal instruments that are going to be recorded at the county clerk's office.
And those recording offices have very strict standards. Many counties still use microfilm or specific scanning technology to archive documents.
Purple gel ink, or red or green, can easily wash out or become illegible during that scanning process. It can cause the entire deed to be rejected by the county recorder.
Which ruins the funding for the loan and makes everyone look bad.
So you have to de-escalate, but hold your ground.
Yeah.
I would say something like, I completely understand wanting to use your favorite pen, but county recording laws require us to use blue or black ink so the documents do not get rejected and delay your loan.
Blame the county, blame the law. It takes the personal friction out of it.
Absolutely. Moving on to Barb in Montana. Barb writes, I was notarizing for a young mother who was holding a screaming baby. The baby was flailing, and the mother asked if I could hold the baby for a few minutes so she could sign the documents. What would you do?
Oh, wow. That is a tough one because your human instinct is just to help the exhausted mother.
It is, but from a professional and liability standpoint, this is a massive red flag.
First, you are there in a professional capacity as a commissioned officer of the state. You are not a babysitter.
God forbid you hold the baby and the baby slips or you trip or something happens. Your notary E&O insurance is not going to cover personal injury to a child you were holding.
Beyond the liability, you physically need both of your hands. You have to maintain control of your notary journal, your stamp, and the documents at all times.
You cannot properly administer an oath or manage sensitive paperwork with a flailing infant in your arms. You keep it deeply sympathetic but firm. I would say I would love to help, but I have to maintain strict control of my notary journal and these legal documents with both hands at all times. Why do we not take a 10-minute break so you can get the baby settled, and we will resume when you are ready?
Perfect. It shows empathy but maintains the boundary.
Next, we have James from Mississippi. James says, I was hired to do a notarization for an inmate at a state correctional facility. When I got there, the inmate obviously did not have their driver's license on them, and their wallet was in lockup. The guard said they could not retrieve it. How do you identify the signer? What would you do?
Prison notarizations are highly complex, mostly because of this exact identification issue.
The fundamental duty of a notary is to positively identify the signer. You cannot just take the guard's word for it.
The first step is to know your specific state laws. Some states explicitly allow a notary to accept a state-issued inmate identification card or a wristband issued by the Department of Corrections as satisfactory evidence of identity.
But if your state does not allow inmate IDs, or if the facility refuses to provide one that meets your state's statutory requirements, you have to rely on credible identifying witnesses.
Which means finding one or two people, depending on your state, who personally know the signer, who have valid, acceptable ID themselves, and who can swear an oath to the signer's identity.
Often, an attorney or a social worker involved in the case might be able to serve as a credible witness, but again, they have to meet the legal criteria for a witness in your state. If you cannot satisfy the ID requirement, you have to halt the notarization.
Never compromise on identification, even in a secure facility.
All right, our last scenario is from Faye in Iowa. Faye writes, I just finished a very smooth signing at a rural farmhouse. The signer was so appreciative that she offered me a carton of fresh farm eggs as a tip. Can I accept them? What would you do?
Faye, this is such a charming scenario, but it touches on a very serious ethical boundary for notaries.
It really does. As a notary public, you are an impartial witness. You cannot have a financial or beneficial interest in the transaction.
Most states strictly regulate the fees a notary can charge for the actual notarial act. Accepting an additional gift, a gratuity, or a tip, even something as innocent as farm eggs, can sometimes be construed as accepting a fee above the statutory limit.
Or worse, it could be seen as compromising your impartiality. If someone questions the validity of that notarization down the road, they might argue that the gift influenced you to perform the act improperly.
Now, some states have very clear guidelines saying notaries absolutely cannot accept gratuities of any kind. Other states might be slightly more lenient if the gift is clearly a token of appreciation and not a condition of the service.
My personal best practice, I always politely decline. I would say, I am so grateful for the offer, these look amazing, but state law prohibits me from accepting anything outside of my standard fee. It keeps your professional integrity absolutely bulletproof.
I agree completely. Keep it strictly professional.
Well, those were some fantastic questions. Keep sending them in.
We synthesize everything we have analyzed today. Surviving the summer as a mobile professional is not about stubbornly suffering through the heat in heavy, inappropriate winter wool.
And it is certainly not about sacrificing your professional authority by surrendering to the climate and showing up to a corporate meeting in a golf polo.
We do not give up on the aesthetic. We engineer a solution. We build a harmonious, multi-layered thermodynamic system.
We use high-twist worsted yarns and the resilient, invisible backbone of Angora mohair to construct an unlined jacket that breathes like a screen door and actively bounces back from mechanical stress.
We equip our vehicles with advanced nanoceramic optical barriers to selectively reject 98% of infrared heat before it ever enters the cabin.
And we utilize lithium-powered cold storage logistics and TRPM8 activating micro-grooming to instantly reset our physiological state before any interaction. It is a holistic approach to complete environmental mastery.
It redefines what it takes to be truly prepared.
And looking at all this incredible tech, I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder. We started out talking about that perfectly engineered 68-degree boardroom. We have figured out how to brilliantly fake that environment on the road using isolated systems.
But as our fabrics become increasingly smarter, like Zegna's near-infrared reflecting cool effect, and our vehicles become rolling, hyper-efficient supercomputers, are we rapidly approaching a near future where these separate systems actually talk to each other?
A fully integrated biometric feedback loop. Imagine a world just a few years from now where your clothing and your car environment communicate digitally in real time.
Your high-twist mohair suit has interwoven microscopic biometric threads that sense your core body temperature beginning to rise.
Before you even begin to sweat, the suit wirelessly pings your vehicle's ECU.
The car instantly signals the nanoceramic smart glass to dynamically alter its opacity and increase its infrared rejection on the sun-facing side of the car,
while simultaneously commanding the ventilated seats to direct microbursts of Peltier-cooled air precisely to your lower back and collar line.
The ultimate seamless synthesis of bespoke tailoring and automotive engineering, operating without any conscious input from the user.
True luxury is rapidly evolving. It is moving away from the loud, conspicuous display of what a brand name looks like on a label and moving toward the silent, invisible thermodynamic mastery of your immediate environment.
It is not just about showing people you have power. It is about engineering your world so they never, ever see you sweat.
That brings us to the end of today's show. Remember, if you have scenarios for our Good Question segment, please email your questions to derek@dereksbrule.com.
We will try to answer as soon as possible at the end of our shows.
We want to give a huge thank you to our team. Executive producer Derek Sprule, lead writer Marylyn Lee Trotter, graphics by Eddie Montes Travis, music by Thomas Bynum, and produced by Magnificent Works Business Solutions.
Remember, do not just be listeners of the knowledge, be doers of the knowledge.
This is Notary Knowledge. Until next time.
To obtain more notary knowledge, explore the full collection of books by Derek Sprule and find the perfect book for your notary business. Visit any online bookstore, Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble Bookstore, booksofmillion.com, bookshop.org, Mobile Notary by DerekSprule.com, or download from Kindle to obtain your essential notary book to help with all your notarization starting today.